Om Asatoma Satkamaya Tamasoma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya Aviravirmageti Rudrayatte Dakshinam Mukham Te Namam Pahi Nityam. May the Divine lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. May the Divine Consciousness fill our hearts and protect us. So we continue with our study of the 6th chapter, the Yoga of Meditation. We'll begin today with verse number 8. Jnana vijnana triptatma kutastho vichitendriyaha yukta ityuchyate yogi samaloshtasma kanchanaha. One whose mind is content through knowledge and realization, who is unshaken, whose senses are conquered, and to whom a lump of earth, stone, and gold are the same, such a yogi is said to be enlightened. So through giving the characteristics of a yogi, we are also being told what is it that we should do if we want to be yogis ourselves. One whose mind is content through knowledge and realization. In Sanskrit it says, Jnana Vijnana Triptatma. Tripta means contentment, the one who is content. Jnana and Vijnana are two terms, both coming from the same root, Jna. One has a prefix V, and which you could say, the prefix V often gets used in a more advanced or special sense. So Jnana is knowledge, Vijnana would be special knowledge, if you like. And so the understanding here is that by the first word Jnana is meant the knowledge that we get through any number of sources, through studying books, through listening to lectures, through reflection. Whatever knowledge is acquired through the medium of the mind and the senses, that is Jnana. But we know also that that is at the intellectual level. It gives us ideas, concepts, it's very cerebral. But the other kind of knowledge is the knowledge that comes through direct experience. And that is in this verse referred to as Vijnana. So Jnana and Vijnana, when they come together, the one way to distinguish between these two terms, both mean knowledge. So they don't mean radically different from each other. But when you say Jnana and Vijnana, then the subtle distinction between them would be Jnana is knowledge, Vijnana is direct experience. It's like reading a lot about apples on Wikipedia or doing all research on apples. That would be Jnana. We'll have a lot of knowledge about apples. But then actually getting an apple in your hand and start biting it and start eating it, then direct experience of apple is another kind of knowledge. So what this verse says is, a person whose mind had both intellectual understanding, but then also confirmed through direct experience, who is unshaken. The word in Sanskrit here is kutastha, immovable. So when can we be unshaken? And we use the word not being shaken in many different contexts. When some big events are occurring around us and our natural tendency is to react to them. But if someone is able to kind of hold themselves well without being overcome by events around them, we would say these people are unshaken. But the word unshaken used here is in an even more subtle way. And that is the word kutastha. It means that when will we be completely unshaken? And the idea here is, so long as there is even one thing other than me, it has the potential to disturb me. It has the potential to make me react to it. The only time I'm completely unshaken is when there is nothing other than me. So we could say, in a state of deep sleep, it's not, there is ignorance there besides me and so on. But still, at present, the closest we come to being pretty much unshaken is in deep sleep. But the ultimate state of being unshaken will be when we are in the deepest samadhi. Because when I am the only existence, there is no place to shake. There is nothing else other than me to make me shake. And so unshaken is in that sense, in that highest state, whose senses are conquered. And here we understand the importance of Shama and Dhamma. They are the two basic practices that we have studied earlier. The restraint of the mind, the restraint of the senses. The mind and the senses are great instruments. It's only through the mind and the senses we get knowledge of the world. And so we don't want to shut them. What we want them is to have control over them, so that the mind and the senses will do what I want them to do. That the mind will not have a mind of its own. The mind should be my either a good friend, as we saw in an earlier verse, or a good pet. If it's a good, well-trained pet, then the mind can be a source of great joy. So just think about how much joy the mind has brought to people throughout history. All great creative work that people do, whether you're doing painting or art or even thinking. Sometimes when we discover something new, either in ideas or express ourselves through any number of different ways, it can be a source of great joy. And that joy does come through the mind. When we go out for a walk early in the morning, we see a beautiful sunrise. Well, we are able to appreciate and feel happy with that, looking at that sunrise, because the senses bring us that lovely color and all the different sensations we have. And very soon, spring will be upon us. So we need good senses and mind to appreciate the beauty of spring, which is soon will be here. So mind and senses are good instruments. What we want them is to have control over them, so that they will take in what is healthy, what is positive, what is strengthening, and keep out what is weakening, keep out what is negative. Because that's the only way to protect us. We cannot change the world, but we can protect ourselves, which is pretty much what we tried to do during the pandemic. There is all this virus going around. There is with all our boasted technology, we don't have any way of eliminating the virus from the atmosphere. And so what did we do? We protect ourselves. We put masks, we took vaccines. That's what we can do. So similarly, these negative influences are there just as there are positive influences. If we can have a good firewall within us, we appreciate the value of a firewall in our computer. We want to be connected with the world through the internet, but we don't want all viruses to go and pollute and contaminate and destroy our computer. Exactly in the same way, it's not very different, it's same. So we need some kind of a firewall which will allow only positive, good, healthy impressions to go in and keep out everything that is negative. And that is why whose senses are conquered here. The word conquered is used to show that we have control over them. And then finally, to whom a lump of earth, stone, and gold are the same. Sama loshta ashma kanchana. So for whom all these, three are same. What does it mean they are same? Of course, a lump of earth is different from a stone. We are able to make distinction. We are able to see they are different. They are not really same. And yet, if the deeper look adds matter, they are one and the same. We know what's in Sri Ramakrishna's life. And because he was not often content with just thinking about things in an abstract way, we actually did it. Because sometimes when we know, for instance, we can think, yes, being helpful and kind is a good thing. Most of us accept that idea. Being helpful and kind is a good thing. But merely accepting the idea is not enough. When you actually go and are kind to someone, when you help someone actually, then you truly understand what being helpful and kind means, rather than merely appreciating the idea in our head. Exactly in the same way, yes, in a deeper way we understand ultimately a clod of earth and gold. Yes, they may have, in a relative world, they may be valued differently, but ultimately, as far as Sri Ramakrishna might say, that as far as their ability to help me reach the divine, both are equally useless. So in that sense, they are one and the same. And Sri Ramakrishna actually, he took a clod of earth in his hand and took some coins in his hand. He went to the Ganga, looked, that's what I meant by saying making even abstract ideas more concrete. And he looked at them and he said, this is same, and he just dropped it into the water. And the more philosophically, we find the passage in the Upanishads, which says, there is this, it's often quoted passage, which says, Mrittika ityeva satyam, that if you have a lot of objects made with clay, a clay pot, a glass, and so on, and ultimately they might all look different, and they are used, they have different utility, but ultimately they are all made of clay. As clay, they are one and the same. Sometimes in India, when they have these big festivals, for instance, in the Durga Puja, which is done oftentimes in a big image, and that time it's just Durga and with her whole family. So there is Durga, and then there is Lakshmi, Saraswati, Kartik, Ganesha, and then they're all their Vahanas. There is this lion and all. It's a big group in the traditional images. They are all made of clay. But when they have this form and when they are nicely decorated and put on the altar, a separate worship is accorded to each of them. There is a worship to Durga, there is and Ganesh, Kartik, Lakshmi, Saraswati, and everyone prays to all these divine figures. Then at the end of the worship, it's time to go for the immersion of these images. So once you go and immerse them into the river or in the sea, and after about a couple of days you go, and you find there is just clay there. Then it's very difficult to know which was the clay that formed the image of Durga and which was the clay that formed the image of Ganesha. As clay, they are indistinguishable. But with a specific form and name, they can be distinguished. And that's what is meant by saying that as gold, as in that color and that texture of that material, and as a clod of earth, they are different. But deep beneath them, ultimately, they are one and the same. So if we can see, and that's at the beginning, what sometimes it goes in stages. First of all, of course, we see this enormous diversity in the world. And then people and the human tendencies to kind of group things together to simplify the diversity in some ways. And that grouping can occur in any number of ways. People can group this and reduce this diversity in terms of gender, nationality, rather than saying there are X number, X billion people in this world, people say there are so many countries in the world. And then we could say, still reduce it by, in terms of gender, we could say, or we, no matter how much we reduce it, the diversity is still very immense. So, in a Vedantic way of looking, ultimately, they come to these two divisions, if you want to reduce everything. And one would be matter, material, and everything that is non-material. And non-material would be just pure consciousness. So everything, whether it is gold or whether it is clod of earth or there is body, mind, animals, plants, their bodies, physical bodies, it's all material. But the essence within them, that is consciousness. So that would be one way to distinguish. But there is a step beyond that. It's not enough to simply distinguish matter and consciousness, because they are not really two realities. The reality is only one. Then when we look deeply, and then we find they're really not even two. That is just consciousness. Just as, although this intellectually we kind of make these divisions, consciousness and matter, really speaking, we cannot see them both at any time. We are only seeing one. And the example is simply this, that when we mistake a rope for a snake, we can never see a rope and a snake. Nobody has been able to see that. As long as you're seeing the snake, you're not seeing the rope. As soon as you see the rope, you don't see the snake. So yes, when you're intellectually figuring things out, you can say this is matter, this is spirit. But what we are experiencing at any given time is, people speak about reaching oneness. In a way, we have already reached oneness. Because one is all that exists. And one is all that we experience. Right now, that same one, we are seeing it as this material world. And in order to see the spirit, in order to experience God, we don't like to go somewhere else and see it. That which is appearing to us as the world will now then appear as the divine. They are not two different things, just like a rope and a snake are not two different things in that example. And so the difference between an enlightened being and an ignorant person is only this. An ignorant person sees the world in place of God, and an enlightened being sees God in place of the world. Very simple distinction. So if at any point we are wondering, have I become enlightened or not? Just open our eyes and see what is that we are seeing outside. So again, now I'm just oversimplifying it, obviously. So in a state of samadhi, then one will experience only the divine. But then we also have that state, we say, coming down from that state, when one has a deep memory of that experience, and we are also kind of seeing this. So it feels as if there is something in the background that we have experienced, but there is something else we are seeing as well. And that is the state in which a Jivan Mukta lives. One who is enlightened, but one who still lives and moves in this world. So what this verse says is, one whose mind is content through knowledge and realization, who is unshaken, whose senses are conquered, and to whom a lump of earth, stone, and gold are the same, such a yogi is said to be enlightened. Next verse, 9. Surun mitrar yudasinam madhyastadveshya bandhushu sadhushvapicha papeshu samabuddhir vishishyate. Excellence is attained by one who looks even-mindedly at all, irrespective of whether they are benefactors or friends or enemies or indifferent or mediators or hateful or good-hearted or evildoers. They try to cover all bases. we'll find most of the people we know in life will fall into one of these categories. I mean, it's possible that maybe something is missing in this and you can add that category to it. The idea is, we were just speaking about it, there's so much diversity in that we live and move again. But can we look even-mindedly at all, at everyone? And as we saw last time, very few of us actually see things. Most of the time, we are reacting to things around us. And what we are seeing is our reaction. So in that sense, what is out there, we may never know. Because what I call the world is really my reaction, the way my mind and senses are reacting to whatever it is that is outside. So in that sense, what is outside is an unknowable entity. What I am seeing as the world is that X, unknown entity outside, plus my mind. Because everything is being filtered through my mind. Everything is being colored by my mind. So what I am seeing is not the world, which is, let's call it simply X. So what I am seeing is X plus mind. And only when my mind will become completely transparent. By transparent, I mean completely free from any ambition, expectation, desire, hope, all of these things that tend to, our biases, our prejudices, all these color the mind, and that colors the world in which we live. So apparently we are all living in the same world. But if you ask people, what do you think about life? And all may not give the same answer. Some people might say, if you ask Sri Ramakrishna, what do you think about this world? And he'll say, oh, just feel filled with the Divine Mother. It's just filled with bliss. You ask somebody else, oh, this is a terrible world. It's corrupt and everyone is bad. And depending on our immediate experience, someone will say, oh, people are so kind and so loving. Everybody has a different opinion. And apparently we are living in the same world. And the differences occur because what is out there and what we see is a little bit different. What we see is colored by the mind. And therefore, it's the mind and the senses that react, and that reaction gives us the colored view of the world. The only way we can look at everything with an equal eye is that we stop reacting. When we stop reacting, we will see things exactly as they are. But it is so difficult not to react. There is this one, my favorite incident about this is that event in the Buddha's life. That the Buddha used to, in a big monastery in which he was for a while, he used to give a morning teaching to all the monks and the nuns in that monastery. And so the story goes that every day morning he'll come, they will all be, the whole members of that monastery will be sitting in front, and the Buddha will give them teaching. And one morning, the Buddha comes, sits, and there are all these, the story says there are over 1,200 monks sitting in front. And the Buddha and everybody is like waiting for the teaching to begin. And the Buddha doesn't say a word. He simply has brought with him a red color lotus. And the Buddha just holds that lotus like this. No word spoken, just the lotus. And everyone is like, why the lotus? He doesn't do that every day. Why is he doing it today? And why is it a red lotus? Why not a white one? And why one? Why not two? All these thoughts are going on in the minds of those sitting in front. And Buddha is not saying a word. He's just sitting there like this. Then, only one among that whole group, his name was Anathapindika. He was one of the monks there. he looked, and then the story says he smiled. And the Buddha saw him smile, and then the Buddha also smiled. And then Buddha gets up from his seat and says, "Today, a great treasure has been imparted by me to Anathapindika, and Anathapindika has received it." And then he leaves the hall. And people are like, "What? What happened just now?" And such centuries, people have written commentaries on what is it exactly that the Buddha gave through that silence, and what is it exactly that was received. And as I said, there are elaborate commentaries written on this. But a very simple way to look at this is simply this. When the Buddha holds up something in the hand, he wants us to see it. And all that people needed to do was just see it. Except that one person, nobody was seeing it. They were thinking, why? Why is he not speaking? And why is he holding the roses or the lotus in hand? The thoughts going on in their mind prevented them from seeing the reality. Well, there's this one person he just said, no thinking, just see. And if you see, he saw that. And if we see things as they are, we will see the reality. I mean, this is a very tremendous statement, a tremendous way to grasp it. The reason when we open our eyes, we don't see God outside. The first is because we don't expect to see God outside. We are so conditioned by God knows millions of births and samskars that we know if I open my eyes, of course I'm going to see the world. Of course, these people around me, that's my family, that's my friend. I have to go to work tomorrow. All these have conditioned ourselves so much that we see only the things that we expect to see. And that's one of the major hurdles in life. Even when we sit for meditation, sometimes, and of course, I'm not saying it's unnatural to feel that way, but when we read all these books and we feel, oh, these great ones, they meditated for years, and I'm just a beginner, and so it's natural for my mind to get distracted. And so when I'm sitting for meditation and my mind gets distracted, I don't feel too bad because I'm just a beginner. It's just obvious, naturally it's going to happen. Why? Why should it happen that way? If God is in my heart, if the divine is in my heart, if I look inside my heart, why am I not seeing the divine? Why am I just seeing darkness? And most of the time, not even darkness. What I am seeing is all these thoughts that are going on in my mind. So in order for meditation to occur, thoughts have to stop. But best of luck trying doing that. Because even then, I must stop my thoughts itself becomes a thought. So it just seems like a losing battle. But it's good to note the distinction between thinking and meditation. Meditation primarily is seeing, is darshan. We are expected to see the divine, not think of the divine, just see the divine. Now, of course, then the natural question would be, well, I'm trying to see the divine, but for some reason or other, I'm not seeing the divine. Then, of course, the next best thing I can do is make an effort to see the divine there. And that effort then does mean thinking one-pointedly about the presence of the divine in my heart. It's still thinking, but I'm thinking about the presence of the divine in my heart and trying to keep all other thoughts away. No other thoughts, neither about the present or the past or the future, nothing. I'm just looking at my Ishta, my chosen deity in my heart. Even if I'm not able to see the divine here, I keep at the back of the mind, God is seeing me, God is here. Right now I'm not seeing God, but God is seeing me. It's a little bit like if you go inside a dark room and you know someone you truly love is sitting in that room. You know for sure they are there. Then, even when you enter that room, you are not able to see them. And maybe if they are wearing infrared glasses or something, they are able to see you, but you are not able to see them. But even if you are not able to see them, you know that they are there. It's very different feeling. And that's where faith comes in. Otherwise, you enter a dark room and say, well, I think they say this person is there, but I'm not very sure if they are there. That's when the doubt comes in. So when we begin our meditation and we see darkness, it's like almost like entering a dark room. The Upanishad always speak about a cave, a deep cave. And of course, cave is a dark inside. But you go there, and even if you don't see, we know, yes, but whoever is there is seeing me. And I know they are there, even though I'm not seeing them. So I'm just going to sit here and keep on looking until they reveal themselves to me. So that's what seeing this distinction occurs. So there will be the distinction in the world. All these different kinds of people will be there. Benefactors, friends, enemies, people who are indifferent, people who are mediators, those who are hateful, who are good-hearted, evildoers. All these distinctions occur because of the categorization we have made in our mind. And I'm not saying that this is completely useless. In the relative world in which we live and move, these things are helpful, functionally helpful to have these distinctions. But if we take a higher stand, then all these things kind of just get flattened out. It's a little bit like the difference, like now when we go about day to day, we see all these differences and high and low and tall buildings and short grass and all of this we see. But then when you fly and you're just like 25,000 feet high, and then your plane is going on a clear day, there are no clouds, beautiful sunshine, oftentimes you are able to see what's below. It's all completely flattened. But when you go down, you see all the variations. This is exactly like that. So when we are at this sea level, then of course we are going to see all these differences, friends, benefactors, and all these different friends and enemies and so on. But if we can raise our mind to that 30,000 feet high, then all of these things we'll be able to see them even-mindedly with the same eye. And that's why he says excellence is attained. The word in Sanskrit is vishishyate. There is in Sanskrit they call it patantara. Another version in some editions of the Gita, in place of the word vishishyate, there is the word vimuchyate. That means these are the people who become spiritually free. Verse 10. Yogi yunjita satatam atmanam rahasi sthitaha ekaki yata chittatma nirashira parigraha. The yogi should retire alone into solitude, become free from expectations and possessions, and meditate constantly with the mind and body subdued. The yogi should retire alone into solitude. His word alone is very important. In Sanskrit here, the word is ekaki. And we have said often in the past how being alone is different from being lonely. Loneliness is the problem, and that needs to be addressed. But being alone, or recognizing that at some level every one of us is alone, is actually very helpful spiritually. In fact, the difficulty people have in meditating is the resistance to the idea of being alone. That's why the mind wants the company. The mind, because in your meditating, you're just by yourself. It's you and the way your guru has instructed you, whether it's your mantra or the divine that you are meditating within, and you are just by yourself. But that resistance to being just by yourself is why the mind then wants to think of what happened yesterday, what I'm going to do tomorrow. Because if I cannot be in the company of people physically, the least I can do is at least think about all these things. And that's the difficulty. But experiencing that, yes, maybe I don't have to be just by myself all 24 hours a day. Of course, most of the time, most of us are in the company of other people. Why should it be so difficult to be alone for a few minutes? In fact, really, think about it this way. When we go to sleep, we are alone. Once sleep takes over, the whole world is shut out. Um, if I mean, of course, sometimes the physical exhaustion itself will, the sleep will enter into it. Otherwise, if someone is afraid of being alone, they should be afraid of even falling asleep. Because this whole world is going to disappear. We fall asleep. I mean, there is faith there. There is faith that although this world is going to vanish when I fall asleep, after a few hours it's going to come back. I mean, just think about it this way. If there was no guarantee that the world would come back, we would be afraid to fall asleep. So similarly, when we are meditating, yes, we are shutting out the world. But don't worry, it will come back. And so we don't have to bring the world while we are meditating. It can afford to wait. And one thing that can be really helpful, if any thought or an idea is kind of nagging at our mind and being a distracting force in our meditation, all that we need to do is to ask ourselves, is this thought or an idea or a memory that is not allowing me to meditate well, is it so important that it cannot wait for the next 15 minutes or half an hour? And yeah, if my mind says, no, it's really very urgent, then you just get up and deal with it and then come and meditate. But most of the ideas that come during our meditation are really not at all that urgent. They cannot just wait for a few half an hour, they can wait for next 6 months, I think, most of the time. And so, let's not delude ourselves. Those distractions that occur in meditation, they occur because we allow ourselves to be distracted. If we are firm, we will be able to, it should be. And that's the test of our willpower. And the willpower, the way to build our willpower is through leading an honest life. A life according to dharma, being honest, truthful, loving, kind. When we hold on to these basic values and principles, then the willpower becomes strong. And when the willpower becomes strong, it is easier to restrain the mind and the senses. It is easier then to not do things that we begin to regret later on. And that's why yogi should retire alone into solitude. We remember Sri Ramakrishna's teaching. He often says in his conversation, now and then, it's a beautiful way it gets described in Bengali. It sounds very alliterative. He says, mone, bone, kone, which really means retire now and then into a forest, or retire within yourself, in your mind, or at the very least, retire into some corner of your home, find some solitude and think of God, because the world keeps us busy all the time. So it's good to find some solitary space, either into some wooded area or in a corner of your home, or at the very least inside one's own heart, and think of the divine. So yogi should retire alone into solitude, become free from expectations and possessions. Two real nirashihi, aparigrahaha, ashihi, expectations. Asha hi paramam dukkham, nairashyam paramam sukham, the Bhagavata says. That the yes, the supreme bliss will come when we are in a state of samadhi, when we become enlightened. But it's possible to get that, come close to that, even before attaining samadhi. It's possible to experience the kind of joy and bliss which we may not have experienced so far. And that is simply to say, I'm not going to expect anything from anyone in life. It's easy to say, but to actually mean it, that I'm going to do everything I can to help other people. I'm going to do I'm going to carry out my duties and responsibilities as best I can. But I don't expect anything from anyone. I can guarantee you, we can be happy this moment. Because many of us don't realize how much of our own pain and suffering and disappointment in life comes through merely having lots of expectations. And of course, we are expecting things from other people. We don't control other people. So, not everything that we expect is going to happen. And when things that we expect don't happen, of course we are going to be disappointed. It's obvious. So, either we choose to say, okay, I'm going to keep on expecting and I'm okay with being disappointed now and then, no need to change anything. But if we say, no, I just want to get disappointments out of my life, then the simple thing would be to say, I'm not going to expect anything. Now, the interesting thing is here. Whether we expect something or not makes no difference whether what I get or what I don't get. Expectations is a totally useless activity. Because if I'm going to get something, I'm going to get it, even if I don't expect it. If I'm not going to get it, I won't get it, even if I move heaven and earth to get it. So expectation, it's a bad habit really. But it's a habit we have acquired over millions of years. And so it needs, again, a strong willpower to say, I'm not going to expect anything from anyone. I believe that what I deserve in life will come to me. There is a beautiful saying of a Sufi saint, it's Caliph Ali, his name was. And he says this, thy place in life is seeking after thee, so cease thou from running after it. It's a beautiful thing that what I'm going to get in this life is on its way. It's going to come to me. Me running here and there doesn't help. All that I can do is carry out whatever duties and responsibilities I have at different stages of my life. Carry them out in the best possible way, in the spirit of yoga, in the spirit of karma yoga. Remember God, be honest, be kind, be truthful. Do all these things. Don't expect anything. And whatever will happen, will happen. We can be truly happy this way. So being free from expectation and being free from possessions. Now, of course, many of us possess many things. But sometimes, without our realizing it, without our intending it, we think we possess something, but actually we get possessed by that thing. And that's a problem. And so one way of dealing with that problem is to say, I own nothing. That whatever I have, whatever I see as mine, because ultimately, if a devotee who believes in God would say, I don't belong to myself, that everything belongs to God. So this belongs to God, and everything I see as mine, whether it's my family, my friends, or my possessions, everything is really God's. But there are lots of things to take care of. And so God says, okay, these are the things I'm giving you, take care of them. So I'm a trustee of these things entrusted in my care by the divine. And if I love God, and because all of these people and things around me belong to God, I'm going to take good care of them. But never forgetting that they don't belong to me. They belong to God. God can take them away. God can do whatever God wants with them. But as long as God has entrusted them in my care, I'm going to take good care of them. That would be giving up the sense of ownership. Just recognizing that everything is leased to us by the divine. We don't own it. So being free from expectations and possessions, and meditate constantly with the mind and body subdued. The word here is Yata Chitta Atma. Yata is control. Chitta is the mind, controlling oneself, with the mind and the body subdued. So Chitta Atma. Chitta is mind. Atma. Look at the word Atma here. Here it means the body. I mentioned these to you earlier. Although when we speak about body, mind, Atman, we usually by Atman you mean the spirit, which is different from the body and mind. But it's a word in Sanskrit. It just means the self. And so the word Atma, because it comes in Sanskrit, doesn't necessarily always mean this non-material divine being. In this it just you have to look at the context. So Yata Chittatma here means the mind and body which is under control. And such a yogi should retire means if a person does all this, they will become yogis. So we'll stop here today. If you have any thoughts, ideas, questions, comments.
Pranam Swamiji. In verse 8, there's the word kutastha.
Mm-hmm.
And I heard you explain it in the context of unshaken, only one, samadhi, there's no two.
Mm-hmm.
But in the verse, there's also references to senses, earth, stone, gold, they're all in the same verse.
Mm-hmm.
So, but when we are talking about the state of samadhi, there is no any of the senses or material things or any of that. So I'm trying to understand this unshaken, this kutasthaness or state of kutastha. Is it synonymous with samadhi, or is it something to aspire to, or how do I...
See, I mean, samadhi is a very kind of a broad umbrella term, and there are levels of samadhi if you want to complicate it further. I mean, the highest samadhi is when, of course, everything vanishes. You are just immersed in that oneness. And that's why it's called nirvikalpa samadhi. There is no distinction of any kind. But even before we have that highest state of absorption, there are other levels of absorption. When one is aware of the divine everywhere, but that doesn't mean that the world has disappeared. You kind of see the world, but because you're also feeling the presence of the divine, you're not reacting to the world the way you would react if you were not feeling that presence of the divine. That's the idea here. You see, one thing, as I've said, the seeing the world itself is not a problem. I don't think the world has to vanish. The world is not a problem in itself. The problem is really seeing the world as real. Because there is only one reality. So if I'm seeing the divine, God as the real being, then yes, I can see all this, but I know that this is only a shadow, that this is not, at least not as real as God. Just as when I see the dream at night, and when I am seeing the dream is very real. But when I wake up next morning and I experience this waking world, I know instinctively that yes, I saw the dream, but that dream is not as real as this. This world that I see when I am awake is more real than the dream I saw last night. Just as we are able to understand the distinction between waking and dream, with waking feeling more real than the dream, exactly the same distinction occurs in that state of different kinds of samadhi. Then you are experiencing the divine, and then you instinctively know if the waking state is a higher notch reality than the dream state, then the divine perception is even higher state of reality than this. So the dream becomes a dream only when we wake up and find that, oh, that was a dream. Only when we come in contact with the so-called higher reality, what we saw last night was a dream. In that sense, when we, in a state of samadhi, come with the contact with another higher reality, compared to that, this world will appear exactly like a dream. But because it's a dream doesn't mean that it's going to vanish necessarily. I'm seeing it, but I will not react to it as strongly as I would. I mean, it's a little bit like when we go to see a movie. And it could be a terrible movie about a tsunami or earthquake, or it could be anything. I mean, there are lots of terror. I mean, there are lots of now. There could be violence and war and all of that in a movie. And while at some level one might be affected by it, but all the time you know that it's just on a screen you're watching it. So you're not as much affected by it than a war that's happening in the waking state. So that we learn one lesson from this, that which is real moves us more than that which is not real or that which is less real. And therefore, if the highest reality is God, then God is the only thing that should really draw our whole being. Well, just maybe 1% of the mind and body can deal with all this other nonsense other than God. Yeah.
Can I speak? Sure. Yes, I should. Namaskar, Swamiji. So I was hearing in the last verse to have no expectations. Now, some of the study that, like I bought your book from here, Knowing the Knower, and I read it to myself every day. And I expect myself to try and practice. So is that different from the expectation that you were talking about?
No. Expect a lot from yourself. Don't expect anything from others.
But isn't that... It is expectation though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a good expectation.
Okay.
Yeah, the thing is this. If we spend our time expecting more out of us, we would spend less time expecting anything about from other people. So it does help. Yeah. I mean, it's like people say we shouldn't, desires bring pain, but not all desires. A desire to attain the divine is a good desire. We can't say, oh, that's also a desire, so I don't want it. So it'll be futile that way. Yeah.
Your story of the Buddha reminded me of how I feel sometimes watching pujas. You see the ceremony, I have a lot of questions, what everything represents, what the Sanskrit I'm repeating back actually means, and it feels wrong to disengage with that. However, at the same time, it's hard for me to empathize and relate and feel the divine in those moments. I'm just curious how, given what you said about not reacting, how I should approach pujas in the future.
I mean, there are two ways to do it. One is to just recognize something sacred is happening and then think of the sacred in your heart while that sacred ritual is being performed. A second way is to actually try to make an effort to try to understand what the process is, what is exactly kind of the every little thing that is happening, even if one doesn't know Sanskrit, but at least to understand the process, then one might be able to get more out of participating in a puja. In fact, we have a book in the bookstore called The Worship of Ramakrishna, which actually gives explanations about, it's not like fully, it's not like immediately next day you'll be able to do puja, but at least you will know what is what. You'll have a better sense of what's being done if you kind of read something about it. And then, of course, if you want to know even more and want to do some small puja yourself, even if it's like a brief version of it, then there'll be a lot of resources online. Or you can just let me know. Okay, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Swamiji, I think something what he asked. You say that we are always like our senses, we are reacting, not.
I don't say that's what we do.
But I feel because we are already expecting something, it is always reaction. But when are we actually getting information or something which, because we already know everything, that's what we are reacting. For example, I'm seeing mother's picture, so I'm expecting mother there. So it is reaction to the mother's picture. Mm-hmm. So when I don't know something, that's when I'm not reacting.
That also be a reacting. Oh, I don't know who that person is. That's also a reaction.
So we are always reacting with the...
Yeah. I'm not saying reaction in itself is bad or something. All that I'm saying is our reacting it is coloring everything that we see. And maybe that reaction is necessary for our perception of the world. Oh, this is what I know, this is what I don't know, this is what I like, this is what I don't like. Our whole daily life is like that, with understanding, not understanding, liking, not liking, finding something interesting, finding something boring. That's just the way it is. Now, I'm not saying in itself there is something bad or wrong about it. All that I'm saying is, if ever the mind becomes completely still, without reacting, then it will see something that it is at presently not seeing. Which is what in the Buddha story, everybody is reacting. Not that they did not see the Buddha. They of course saw the lotus in Buddha's hand. So they saw it, and yet they did not see it. But there was this one person who stopped thinking about it, and then he saw something which none of these others saw in that gathering. So it's not as if we are not seeing the world. We are seeing the world, but that world is colored. And because it is colored, our dealing with the world is influenced by the way our mind colors it. And the reason we are often told to then have positive thoughts and lead an authentic life, be kind, truthful, and so on, is to make the mind, the lens, transparent and more kind of suited to be able to see that higher reality. Yeah. So yes, we are reacting all the time. Yeah. Okay. So we will stop here today. When we begin next time, we'll begin with verse number 11. Om Jananim Saradam Devim Ramakrishnam Jagadgurum Padapadme Tayo Shritva Pranamami Muhur Muhu.